pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Member Bomar?
Here.
Member Small?
Here.
Chair Skipper?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, at this time, anybody's planning on speaking, the clerk would like to administer an oath to you.
Anyone who will be speaking to the board or making a presentation is to be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. Anybody who will be speaking to the board or making a presentation, do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give or present to the board is truthful?
Okay, thank you. We had one other gentleman that just, I don't think he was in the office. In the room at the time.
Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give or present to the board is truthful? Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, the approval of the agenda, one of the cases elected to defer on to the next meeting.
Yes, Chair. Case number, or item 4C on your agenda, case number 23026, 131 72nd Avenue, requested to be continued to the June meeting.
Okay, we need a motion to do that, I believe.
If we can, just for advertisement purposes, Chair.
I'll make a motion that we move case 23026 to the next meeting,
June 28th.
June 28th.
I second.
Second, any further discussion? Not, roll call.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Bomar?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Move on to the regular agenda. Well, approval of the minutes first. If you've had a chance to look at those, we need a motion for the approval of the prior minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for April 26th.
I second.
Second, any discussion? Not, roll call.
Member Bomar?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries. And we still need to approve the agenda with the change. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for today with the change of case 23026 being moved to the June 28th
I'll
meeting.
second.
We have a second to that motion. Any other discussion? Not, roll call.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Bomar?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to our action items. And I think the staff has explained to you, if you're here and you're having your case heard, today it takes 3 votes for your case to move forward to be approved. Normally, if there's 5 people here, you'd have to have 3 of the 5. We only have 3 today. So you have to have all 3 in order for your case to be approved. So should you want to continue your case, that's your option, or you could certainly go ahead with it like it is. So just let us know when it's your turn if you want to do that. First case is 22013-1, 510 78th Avenue.
Even though I talked.
Okay. I believe we called the first case. Mr. DeAmper.
Good afternoon. As stated in your agenda package, I'm here to request a modification to one of the conditions of my development order and not to the variance. That statement is the structure must be enclosed on the south side adjacent to the rear property line. Additionally, the structure must be roofed to mitigate sound and light. Again, that's not to affect the variance, just the development order. Requirements. Subject to the issuance of the development order, I researched to see if either of these 2 requirements could be accomplished on the structure as designed and built. The result of my research was that the structure was never designed to meet the additional load and weight that would occur if added hard roof and wall were to be installed onto this gazebo. I then reached researched what I could do to install to meet the intent of these conditions. My solutions were as follows. I had a heavy-duty Umbrella canvas, custom canvas covering made to fit the entire roof area and installed professionally with 2-inch stainless steel screws with fender washers. The canvas roof was found to meet the intent of the development order by our building official, who subsequently visited my property. I installed roll-up sunshades that cover 90% of the south side of the structure, virtually shielding all of the previous perceived nuisance light.
Okay.
Okay. As evidenced here. Additionally, my neighbor erected a utility shed inches from the fence line and planted a thick growth of sea grapes, which have eliminated any visual contact between the 2 yards. Evidence there. Evidence there, you can see the sunshade from a property that was to the southeast of my property. A close-up of the sunshades that show the ability of light transfer. A picture there that shows the placement of the new utility shed within, as I said, inches from the property line, and blocks the visibility and the sound of the shed, of the gazebo. Another picture there of the blackout screen from a different perspective to show that it does get as much as possible. There's a close-up of the sea grapes that were on the other side of the 6-foot fence that separates our property. There's an extreme close-up showing the bottom of the top of the fence and looking through the sea grapes to show that there's virtually no visual contact between the two properties. And this is a picture from the western side of my property looking south. My neighbor's property would be just on the other side of that 6-foot fence. As you can see, my property is lushly landscaped, which blocks light and a lot of the sound. This structure has received a building final as of June 25th, 22. So the building department did final this on that date. My neighbor to the east of the structure has a mother-in-law apartment less than 5 feet from the structure and has recently provided you with a letter that should be in your packet. I think it was a late letter that was received, stating that they had absolutely no issuance, any property with any noise or light emitting from the gazebo. This is a picture there looking to the east, inside the gazebo. Inside the gazebo, and you can see the mother-in-law apartment is right there. And there is another picture showing the relative location of that mother-in-law apartment to the gazebo, showing that their comments as to light and sound emissions they had no problem with and didn't realize that there was a problem. To the best of my understanding, the city has never received a code complaint concerning sound or light being emitted from my property for a nuisance light, and I have never been served with any notice of any such code violation as called for in Chapter 46, Article 4 of the city's Code of Ordinances. Therefore, I'm requesting an amendment to the development order stating that the mitigation that has occurred meets the intent of the conditions of the development order. Do you have any questions?
So,
Not at this time, we may.
and Chair, my apologies. I had heard that maybe Mr. Diamper was going to request a continuance, which is why I had him come up, but Kristen does have a very straightforward presentation that we'd like to show.
Got a little out of.
Yeah, we did. My apologies on that. But ultimately, what we're here for, and I just want to make it clear for the board, we are not in a position to rescind anything that's already been approved. I understand the backup materials. There's a petition to reconsider and deny. That's not what's in front of you today. It's simply a modification to a condition that you approved at the time of the development order, right? And that modification, or that condition being an enclosed south side. Okay.
And we can modify that?
You can modify the condition. You can say yes, you can say no. But I just want to make it clear that we're not here to rescind anything that was already approved.
Correct.
So if you say no to the condition, then it remains as is and still a condition. If you modify it, you can, and there'll be an amended development order. But in no way will we tear down the structure at this point because it's already gotten the approval it needed.
So I just really want to give you, as the board, some background information. I know Mr. Diamper came up and kind of gave you some pictures, but I want to give you, I know you see a lot of applications, so just a little background on how we got to where we were. So with that, I'll begin with case number 22013-1. Thomas Diamper at 510 78th Avenue. Again, he requests the modification of the conditions contained within the development order for his last year's case of 22013, which was executed with the development order on March 30th of 2022 for his approval to retain a patio cover encroachment of approximately 3 feet into the side setback where 5 feet is required and 12 feet into the rear setback where 15 feet is required. So again, as the board did approve this setbacks. Just a listing of exhibits. Again, this is going to be very brief, not my usual. But here is the prior approval. Again, it just gets into the side and rear setback and the percentage of encroachment that was approved last year. This was a copy of the survey that was submitted as part of the application, and you'll see the yellow highlighter. That is the location and dimensions of the existing patio cover, which Mr. Diamper provided pictures of as well. This is the executed development order by the prior planning manager, again on March 30th of 2022, where he does state the conditions that the structure must be enclosed on the south side, adjacent to the rear of the property, and additionally the structure must be roofed to mitigate sound and light, and condition 2, that the structure shall not be enclosed on the front or sides. Just some photographs. We did notice for this hearing, so proper noticing was conducted, the sign was posted, the notice was posted in the Tampa Bay Times, as well as notice of public hearing to all the neighbors within 300 feet. Just a front view of the property, and staff did visit the property in February 26th of this year, and just a few photos of what we saw, as well as Mr. Diamper gave you plenty more of the existing conditions. So that is all I have for you, just to bring you up to date where we were, how we got here, and then testimony from the applicant.
Does the staff have any recommendations on what he'd like to delete from it? Does it make any difference?
I don't believe staff has made any recommendations as far as that. As the prior, I can tell you the prior staff report did recommend that it stayed open and unenclosed on all sides. So through that meeting, the prior meeting, it came to light that it should be roofed and enclosed on the south side, but there were really no provisions made of how that was to be accomplished. So because there was that disconnect of information, now we're trying to determine as a board, you as members, if what he currently has meets that requirement.
Okay, it's met the building department requirement now, right?
That is correct. They did issue a final on that.
Okay.
And I was at that meeting, if I may, Chair, and I think the enclosures came as a condition based on comments from an adjacent neighbor related to sound and light. and at that point, this board decided to enclose one, but not all 3 sides. We don't feel comfortable, this is a board decision, staff didn't feel comfortable making a decision on whether or not this is enclosed. I think to the layperson, it's clearly not enclosed. Enclosed to me means roof to floor. But if this is sufficient for the condition that you all meant, that's why it's in front of you today, is to require a modification to clarify that.
Did we have any letters of objection to this?
We did have letters. We received 3. 2 were in objection and 1 in support, that you have received the latest 2 in your packet today. The other one was published with the agenda packet.
And Chair, that's what I was referencing with this petition to reconsider decision, which was handed out to you prior to the meeting. I just wanted to be clear that we're not here to reconsider that.
Correct.
Right, that's why I just wanted to address that for the public watching.
Is anyone else here like to speak on behalf of this applicant? Is there anyone here in opposition? Can you come forward and give us your name, please?
Robert Knabel. I'm at 77th Avenue, 515, the adjacent neighbor. There's a couple things that were going on here that and the original determination, I know that they're telling you can't look at it right now, but there was false information provided to the board the last time, and Mr. DeCamp said that he placed it on a existing driveway. There was not an existing driveway there, and we have photographs.
We're not going to go review what's already been done. What was
But I want it on the record that it was not, that he provided false information.
all right?
So the other thing he pointed out to you guys was about the light. The light's been mitigated mostly by me because he hasn't done anything to mitigate it. I had to plant trees, spend the money to plant the trees. I had to push my utility shed backwards a little bit. You know, it still was under the code, but there's still sound coming from that. I mean, it's I'm going to show you some pictures. So right here. So that telephone pole, the side
Can you
farthest. What's
rotate
that?
please.
What's that?
Do you mind rotating the picture? Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
So the telephone pole right here is my property line. He's almost on my property line, if not on it. And the sound that comes from that when you're in your backyard now, you know, from that television set, I can tell you, it's not just somebody sitting back there, you know, having a cocktail and talking. So that's an issue that I wanted to point out, okay? Here's another issue where,
Rotate.
Rotate that one.
Thank
so
you.
you can see right here clearly, this was a tree that was taken out that we helped pay for to take it out. Right here is not a driveway. This is, you can see wood and all that. So obviously it wasn't built on an existing driveway. So what we're asking for, if it's not going to be reconsidered to remove it, what we would ask for is that the wall that was originally approved at the last hearing to mitigate sound, not light, sound, be placed on the south side. So it mitigates it for our property. Because it's only like 1 foot, if it's even 1 foot off my property line, when it should be 15 feet back. And that's what we're asking for then.
Okay, I'm not sure we can we?
Require a wall. I mean, you did require, the board previously required that it be enclosed. I think that was,
Right, on the south.
it's a very subjective term on what enclosed means, and I think that's why we were back in front of you. But if I may just address just 2 points that the adjacent property owner mentioned. Number one, the first time this was approved, there was a 30-day window from the development order to appeal any decision of this board to circuit court, right? That appeal period has now well passed based on a year. Number two, nothing in our code prohibits anyone in any residential neighborhood from putting a TV outside and playing it, regardless of whether or not you have a structure. So I just want to be clear, whether the structure was there or not, property owners are allowed to have TVs outside and play it, right? Now,
I think we talked about that.
at the last time, and if it's a noise violation, then it should be filtered through code enforcement, and they'll go out there and they'll take a reading, and, you know, we'll handle it that way. But I just wanted to clarify those 2 points for you.
Okay.
Well, one thing though, yes, but if you put a Florida room 1 foot off somebody's property and have a TV, it's a little bit different than saying, I'm putting a TV in my backyard, you know, and hanging it on my fence or something like that. Most people won't do that, you know. So what we have is a Florida room 1 foot off my property line that I can now know when I go out in my backyard, which used to be quiet because there was enough space between everybody under the zoning codes. Now it makes it really loud. I mean, it's going to turn into where I'll just play music all the time or get chickens and put them in there. So I would appreciate it if you guys make him put the wall in there that we all agreed to the last time we were here then. If you're not going to remove it, then do that. And we didn't appeal it because we didn't have all of this information at the time that now we have. So we could have appealed it. We would have appealed it back then if we would have known that there was false information given and we could determine that it was. So we didn't do it then. And the fact that he was going to put the wall in and for the sound, we didn't appeal it. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is Rick in here?
Anyone else here would like to speak?
Maybe. I think they were both.
We have anyone else who'd like to speak on this case? If not, we'll close the public hearing portion. We'll open up for board discussion.
Did he not show us some pictures of the south side? Something has changed since these other pictures, correct? Didn't he have a blue canvas on that wall?
Not sure.
Did you see that? Can we ask him to show us the south side of that?
Yeah. I had another question, though. Did Mr. Diampart decide to go ahead today, or
Yes,
he decided to go ahead?
Yes.
For sure. Okay. Just want to make sure that we...
Yes.
So I wasn't sure about, I know what you're talking about, but do we want to see his pictures again?
I do. want to see that. Do you-
Kristen has some pictures.
I do have 2 pictures that I can go back, let's see. Here is one, and again, this was taken when staff was out there in late February. We did do a site inspection, so you can see this is what he had as the roof covering, as well as on the south side, the sunbrella fabric. And here's just another angle where the sunbrella fabric is, and in that cabinet that is on the right-hand side of the picture, that is where the TV is actually located.
That's facing away from the south side?
Correct.
So it's facing away from the neighbor?
Correct.
And it looks like it's enclosed in that...
Well, I think that is, and again, the applicant will probably tell you, but I believe that's to protect it from elements when it's...
I'm not sure adding anything more will really help the sound or not over there.
No, and is this the state that it's in right now? The picture
Yes,
that's up
please.
there? Or did you have...
Amber, would you like to
I
show
thought
us?
you had a different picture of the south side. That is it right there.
Yes, there is. I couldn't tell from that picture if it showed where the utility shed, the new utility shed was placed. There was another utility shed not in that location previously. But I think, does that answer your, is that a better?
And if I may, I think there was even prior changes after you got your approval in 2022 that 6-foot vinyl fence was not installed at the time.
Correct.
No, it was there.
No,
There was a chain link on the western side.
we,
I think, I'm sorry.
this was the additional fencing.
Okay.
As you can see, this is the corner of our property. This would be going across the south side. This is going on the east side. So yes, this is new.
That portion is new. Okay.
So there was additional sound attenuation there.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
No.
Mike?
I keep trying to walk away.
I don't know, in my opinion, I don't know what more would be done to mitigate the sound without being kind of extreme to me. I don't know.
Well, I think we can either accept it, the conditions as is, or we can,
Correct. You either do nothing and leave the development order as is, but I will say we need a little bit of clarification on what this board deems enclosed, if it's from top to bottom, if that shade could be, you know, just a little bit of clarification there, or you can modify it to say that, and we can come up with language right now, if that's the way that you want to go based on what's currently there.
I think there's a little bit too much open space above and on the sides of those shades right now. If you could-
wall right there right now.
Sir, if you don't mind. I mean, if the board wants to take comment again, you're allowed to, from the property
I
owner.
think it's necessary at this time.
So, I mean, the word says enclosed. It was never discussed that there would be a wall. I mean, I don't think anyone thought there was going to be a concrete wall there in any way. But it's really at the board's discretion at this point.
I would tend just to leave it as it is.
I think it's good to hear. Sure.
What, the public is closed, public comment's closed.
It wasn't a concrete wall, though, it's just the right wall.
Excuse me,
Planner.
Sir?
To work here. You guys, he's something else, you know? This guy's on the planning board, he built it without a permit, and you guys just keep turning your backs on it.
Property rights are an emotional thing. I can understand that. So, as is right now would require a modification of the condition, which is why it's in front of you. So if you're okay with how the structure looks and you think that's sufficient to meet this condition, then we would have to modify condition 1. And I don't know how specific staff wants to be on that condition, but we could say something like structure must be enclosed on the south side halfway down, you know, I mean, we could get creative here, if that's the way you want to go.
That's the way to go. Let's get creative and have this gentleman move forward.
Okay.
As it stands now, condition 1 is, the structure must be enclosed on the south side, adjacent to the rear of the property. Additionally, the structure must be roofed to mitigate sound and light.
So the latter of that has been met. Okay.
The roof has.
The roof has been met. So, I don't really think we need to,
Other than a wall, I don't see what more he can do right now.
yeah, I wish, I tried to get our building official in here, but both of them are out, actually, him and the deputy, to kind of give us some ideas on what could happen there. Because obviously there's a certain weight that that structure can receive as well. Yeah, so, okay, I think we have enough. If the board's okay with it, staff and I will, based on the approval today, craft a condition that's appropriate for what's currently there, if that's the route you want to go.
You mean describing what the wall would be?
I struggle with being too specific, because then anytime that for some reason gets affected by sun or goes away, he's going to have to put up the same exact thing. If we're like, you know, if we actually spell out what the fabric is. But the gist of it is, you're okay with it not being enclosed from roof to floor?
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
I don't think it'd make really any difference, really, that little.
Could we, can we bring Mr. D'Ampart to the mic again?
The board can do whatever the board wishes.
Do you mind?
No, that's fine.
I just have a...
If you'd like to come forward again, you can.
So I'm just trying to mitigate here a little bit.
Thank you.
If you did that with if you did the back wall with like Sunbrella, like the roof is, where it snapped to the sides halfway down or something, would that mitigate more of the sound that he's concerned about?
I can't tell you, because nobody has ever established that there is a sound problem. We've never had any sound, I mean, in our, if I can, I don't want to overstep in our small yards, I can sit on the back of my yard up against my house where I've got a patio and they can be in their yard, or my adjoining neighbors can be in there, and you can hear conversations. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 50-foot lots, and that's just the way it is. So I can tell you, I haven't had any confirmation of any noise or light attenuation off of my property, nuisance-wise, by anybody, and a letter that from an adjoining neighbor with living quarters much closer has no problem with this. So I don't know. You know, I'm willing to do what I need to do within reason, but there's been never any justification of any light or sound emanating from my property other than this particular neighbor.
So, the reason I ask about this umbrella, because it lasts a long time, it's pretty sunproof, it's a little heavier than just a screen. If you're willing to do that, would that satisfy the city's definition of a wall on the south side, or?
So it's not our definition, it was a condition that was there, and for the city's point of view, this board could say all four sides can be open. I mean, that's really where we are, is we're just asking for direction, and we don't have the authority to amend or modify these
Just try to
development
mitigate
orders.
it by enclosing portions of it.
Correct, I think that was I was at the board meeting, I think that was the direction of the board, is because the staff report was clear that it was actually recommended to keep all four sides open. So if you're okay with that, if you want to still keep it somewhat enclosed, but modify it so that it's clear to staff and the city on what to look for, that's okay. So it wouldn't really be modifying the condition too much, it would just be specifying what we meant by enclosed.
So he could run it all the way up the rest of the way.
He could do that, or if you think what he has there is sufficient, then he could leave it there, and we could, now that we have this public forum and this motion, we could look back on this and say, okay, this is what the board meant by enclosed.
Mr. Hamper, would you have a problem running it up the rest of the way?
Running, what, you mean running it down farther?
Like if you put Sunbrella on the top half of the south wall against the posts, or, you know.
Could I put Sunbrella on rollers so that it can be raised and lowered?
Yeah, I would think so.
Because when there's a storm, the reason why I have it on rollers is when a storm comes through,
You go up.
I want to get that off of the, I'm sure that I can find the same company to put it on rollers, just like this is on rollers, it goes up and down, and if we have a big storm, it goes up. But other than that, it's down, and it goes down, well, the fence is 6 feet high, it goes down maybe 2 feet off the ground right now. So that's 4 feet below the top of the fence right now. But I can, tell me what you want me to do. And
Would that make it, would that remove too much airflow in there and make it uncomfortable to do?
Well, sure, it's going to, of course it will. I mean, you know, I'm not, that's something I'm going to have to deal with, if that's, but,
All right, thank you, let us
Okay.
discuss it further. Anyone else here like to rebuttal? Well, not, we'll move on to board discussion.
Yeah.
We have a motion. You have something to say?
Yeah. If I may, would the board like to take a look at the pictures of the different types of fabrics that are there, that are currently there? I believe the roof, and the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's more of like a canvas type material, and the roll-up shades are actually sort of a Sunbrella fabric, being that they do allow light to come through. So I don't know terminology if Sunbrella would be appropriate, or if you're looking for more.
Sunbrella is just a brand. You get
Correct, but if you see, I believe the roof that's existing there is more like a canvas type that's attached, and the other shades that come down are more like the sunshade, Sunbrella type fabric as well. So
So the top is acrylic,
that, I believe that's more like a canvas material from being out on site.
No, that's
Okay.
I think initially, this was okay, the staff approved this with being open all the way around.
Correct.
We looked at it and trying to be conscious of the neighbor, requested some sound barrier, and I believe he's pretty much done what we requested.
I think he's met all his requirements. I make motion we approve case 22013-1.
I'll second it. Is that the correct motion? To leave it alone?
Yes, that's sufficient.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
Member Bomar?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
So, my apologies. I second-guessed myself. Just to clarify, for staff, now that this is going to be a part of the record forever, if there was a situation in which the shades were removed, would that still meet the condition to this board? And the reason I ask is because I'm starting to think if that's the way the board wants to go, then maybe removing the enclosure condition altogether is more appropriate and allowing the property owner to put whatever he deems appropriate there.
Then how do we term it that we want those shades there?
So you do want the shades there? Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, we'll move on to our next case. Kristen, 23024, 271 Isle Drive.
Certainly. So variance case number 23024, applicant owner Kelly Storman for Daniel Storman Trust, located at 271 Isle Drive. With this application, they do request to install elevated equipment that does not meet the 7-foot required side yard setback with 4.5 feet is proposed, and it is a practical difficulty variance. Listing of exhibits. Here is an aerial of the property. This is located on Vina Del Mar. It is on Isle Drive and is the site highlighted in green. It is a waterfront parcel. It has single-family residential uses to the north and south, Vina Del Mar Park to the east, and Little McPherson Bayou to the west. It is located in the RU1 zone, RU on the future land use map. And here's a copy of the survey and request. The current survey of the property, it does contain a 1-story dwelling that recently was constructed and received a final certificate of occupancy in April of 2022. It has a circular driveway, rear patio paver with in-ground pool, and dock with boat lift. Here's just an enlargement of the survey showing the proposed generator location, and it's to be elevated 5 feet off the property line, or from the ground, from grade, sorry. A little bit more information on the request detail. Going on to the site, noticing was completed as required and sign posted on the property on May 24th. Here's just a front elevation of the dwelling with the sign posting. So this would be the adjacent neighbor to the south and the adjacent neighbor to the north. So here is a view of the side yard along the northern property line where the proposed generator is to be located. You will also see that there is currently the pool equipment and the air conditioner unit. This was taken from the dock in the rear of the property, so you can just see where there might be alternate locations that could have been placed. Here are some other views of the north side yard. So on the left, that is looking from the front of the dwelling to the rear, and the other one is looking from sort of where the patio is, looking towards the front of the property. And here is a picture just taken off the seawall. Again, the location for the proposed generator would be on the left-hand side. So with any practical difficulty variance, they must meet the standards of review. With the variance criteria and comments, staff did provide comments that were placed in the staff findings report. And with that, staff does have some information that the applicant should provide their own testimony and respond to the staff comments below. So just to provide testimony as to the necessity of the proposed generator and if any alternate locations were contemplated, applicants should discuss if at the time of the design phase or during construction of the new dwelling was the potential installation of a generator explored or desired, being that they did receive the newer home, just received the certificate of occupancy. An applicant should provide an overview of the proposed location of the generator, including if any other utilities are in close proximity. With that, staff find the request is reasonable given the existing conditions of the lot and will not have an adverse impact on the neighborhood, and staff does recommend approval of case number 23024 as proposed. We did receive 2 letters, Chair, one an objection, and we also received another one, but it wasn't really clear whether there was either way. It was just some additional questions, and they were unsure if, the applicant was unsure if they'd be able to make it to the meeting.
Are they adjacent neighbors?
That is a great question. Let me just double check. It did come in just late. Easy. So they are located at 261 South Isle Drive, and this is 271. Let's see. But they would have been within the 300 feet.
All right, is the applicant here? Come forward, please. Get your name and address for the record.
Khalees Storman, 271 South Isle Drive.
Okay. And you want to put a generator in, correct?
Correct.
Anything special you need to tell us about it? It's going to go on the side where your air conditioner is now.
Correct.
You know, is it going to stick out any further than your generator?
We're going to try to make it as least intrusive as we're allowed to.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, other than I really would like a generator because of all these hurricanes and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else here like to speak on behalf of this applicant? Anyone here an objection? Okay, hearing none, we'll open it up for board discussion.
I personally see no issue with it whatsoever.
These generators typically run once a week for 10 minutes to test themselves.
Correct.
Other than first power out there.
There's
Generally
power
fairly
out,
quiet.
yeah. And they'll be the guy with one in the driveway that'll make a lot more noise than that, so.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the only time it's going to be running is when it's going to test itself or if there's no power.
Correct.
So,
It's automatic on and off. They come on and off by themselves.
and if I was that neighbor, I'd probably be asking if I could plug into his generator for my refrigerator.
Denied. You want to make a motion, Mike?
Anybody like to make a motion for this?
Oh, it's 23024, correct?
Yes.
So I'll make a motion, we approve case 23024 as proposed.
I second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not roll call, please.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Bomar?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You can remove the sign off your property. No, I do not.
Thank you.
Our next case was deferred to the following month.
That is
so we'll
correct.
Move on to the last and final of 23-031-108 21st Avenue.
Okay. So variance case number 23031, applicant owner is Nate Meyer for Christine Malace, I think, and Jason Laval. Excuse me if I butchered that a little bit. The property address is 108 21st Avenue, and the applicant is requesting a practical difficulty variance to construct a single-family residence that does not meet the 15-foot rear yard setback requirement with 5 feet proposed, and construct a 6-foot-high water feature associated with the proposed in-ground pool that does not meet the 5-foot required yard setback with 8 inches proposed. Listing of exhibits. Okay, here is an aerial of the property. The site is highlighted in green. It does currently contain a single-family residence. It is single-family residential use to the north and east, an alleyway and single-family residence to the west, and a 2-family residential use to the south across another alleyway. So the property is located in the RLM2 Passive Grille Overlay Zone. It is RLM Residential Low Medium on the future land use map. Here is a current survey of the site. It contains a 1-story single-family dwelling that was constructed in 1948 according to the property appraiser and is considered a contributing structure to the Passive Grille National Register Historic District with covered carport, 2 sheds, and a large concrete drive with rear alley access. So again, the applicant is requesting to demolish the structure and construct new. And with that, he does need these two variances with regards to the new construction. And here's just what was the zoning table contained within the staff findings report. And here is a site plan showing the proposed footprint of the new dwelling with the site improvements. And with this case, it did go before the Historic Preservation Board for case number 23005 and case number 23008. So in April, the applicant did request demolition of the structure in connection with a certificate of appropriateness and presented a new design review for the single-family residence to be constructed to the house medium standards of the Pacific Overlay District, which is being constructed as a redevelopment of the subject property to the Historic Preservation Board. They did approve both cases with 4 mandatory items and recommendations, which I did not include. They did get the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the property, or the dwelling. But with that, the variance must be obtained for the additional story above the garage, currently proposed at a 5-foot setback from the alleyway where 15 feet is required. And should the variance be denied, the garage may maintain in its proposed location, but the additional level above would need to be removed or offset at least 15 feet from the rear property line. And in the case that the garage no longer is sharing a common wall with the main home, the garage would be limited to 14 feet in height. And also the variance is required for the pool setback on the western alleyway side, which was not considered part of the Historic Preservation Board review for that 8-inch setback, where 5 foot is required. So now that we kind of have a little history of the property, I wanted to show you what was submitted to the Historic Board for their review. These are 3D images that were provided to the Historic Preservation Board as part of their proposal and was also submitted on behalf of this application. So they are similar, nothing has changed from one to the other. There were some modifications that the Historic Board did recommend that the applicant is probably working towards to go back and get review, but it was nothing as far as setbacks were required. Okay, so here's just a little comparison of, again, what is currently existing on the property and what is proposed. Bringing you now onto the site. The notice was completed as required and signposted on the 24th of this month. And here's the existing dwelling on the property, and that is to be demolished. So here is the adjacent property to the east, and across the alley is adjacent property to the west, which also has frontage on Pacific Way. Here is the rear of the property from the alley intersection, so you can kind of see at that back corner. Here's another shot going down the alleyway a little bit more to the east, where that existing carport and the storage sheds are to be removed as well in the parking area. Just another couple of shots from the alleyway. The one on the left is looking north from the alley intersection, and also the one on the right is looking straight down the alley, so you can kind of see just with a vehicle that was parked there for landscaping. And then this is looking west from the east. Again, you can kind of see the residential storage shed right there. And then this is the existing dwelling to the front, where we're looking at the existing setback on the front is 20 feet from the front property line. The proposed house is 10 feet from the front property line. And this is on the side, on the east side, sorry about that, where 7.67 feet is existing and 5 feet is proposed. So now that you've seen the property, I just wanted to bring back the images of the proposed dwelling so you can see what was there and what is proposed. comparison. And as you know, with the practical difficulty variance, there are standards for review. Staff comments were contained within the staff findings report, and I was going to get a little bit more into a few of these, just because it is brand new construction. It did go before the Historic Preservation Board. Okay, so one of those questions is how substantial the variance is in relation to the requirements sought to be varied. So staff finds that the applicant is requesting a rear yard setback of 5 feet where 15 feet is required, representing a difference of 66% and an encroachment of 10 feet. The proposed pool with a 6-foot high water feature wall is proposed 8 inches from the side property where 5 feet is required, representing a difference of 87% and an encroachment of 4 feet 4 inches. So whether the difficulty could be obtained or obviated by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than a variance. And staff felt that the property owner opted to build a new dwelling to the Passive Grove overlay standards and chose to design a dwelling that would not fully conform to the house medium setbacks. The applicant and owner can amend the plans to fully conform with the requirements, as neither improvement could be considered an essential element, but rather than an accessory. Should the variance for the rear yard setback be denied, the garage may remain in its proposed location, but the additional level above would need to be removed or offset at least 15 feet from the rear property line. In the case of the garage no longer shares a common wall with the main home, the garage would be limited to 14 feet in height as per the Passive Grove overlay standards. The pool could be redesigned to eliminate or alter the water wall feature to meet the required setbacks. So I know with this diagram, there's a lot of stripes going on, so let me explain that. This actually tells you what your building envelope would be. So if you were looking at a vacant lot and you were going to construct a new home, you'd have to look at what your setbacks are required. I also do want to note that the impervious surface ratio is 0.7 or 70%, no matter if you're developing to the overlay or to the underlying zoning, okay? So with the Passive Grove overlay, you'll see the red, those are the reduced setbacks. Because they're building to the overlay standards, instead of the 20 feet that's required in the front, they're allowed to actually go to 10. 10 is the minimum, 15 would be the maximum. And then in the rear, the 20 feet is required for the RLM2 and 15 is required for the overlay. So they get a building envelope, a building footprint that they could potentially build in. So the ones that are in aqua, the blue color, are actually the areas exceeding the setback requirements. And that's what they're looking for the variance. So I just wanted to give you kind of a representation of here's underlying what you could build in an envelope or that rectangle. With the overlay, you're kind of granted a little bit extra leniency, and then what they're actually looking to do, what's outside those envelopes. So I thought that might be of some benefit for you.
Okay, thank you.
And then whether an adverse change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. So staff does understand that this would be the first new dwelling built to the overlay in the area of 21st Ave, and we did find substantial unfavorable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood with the proposal. So with the dwellings on 21st Ave and those fronting Gulf Way, they only gain access by way of alleys. So there's no driveways on 21st and there's no driveways on Passive Grove Way. Everything has to be accessed from the rear of the property. So with granting the variance to be only 5 feet for the the rear of the garage, and you can see the driveways on that side alleyway as well, of the alleyway, there isn't potential for any extra parking.
Correct.
Okay, so they do meet the minimum requirement of the 2 parking spaces inside the garage, but if they were to have visitors or any other parking, they cannot park in the alley, and so they'd either have to be on 21st Ave headed east, because there isn't on the south side, I'm sorry, facing east, or there's no parking on the north side of 21st Ave or on Gulf Way. So there's a lot of movement that has to happen within those alleyways, and that staff is just concerned, being that it is proposed to be 25 feet, almost 26 feet in height, it kind of does block that corner. Now, we do not have a site visibility triangle required for an alley, We do for if it was on Main Street, but it kind of just doesn't provide a lot of site visibility there. So also with that height could be an issue. Staff doesn't feel there would be an adverse change produced with the character of the neighborhood with the proposed pool placement, but again, feel that it could be relocated to meet compliance. So with that, the applicant should be prepared to provide their own testimony and respond to staff comments below. The proposed impervious surface ratio, or ISR calculations, were provided on sheet A 0.01, showing proposed ISR at 0.67, where 0.70 or 70% is the maximum permitted. In terms of square feet, the project is close to meeting the maximum ISR permitted, and a difference pretty much of 120 square feet. Little flexibility should the hardscape design wish to be altered over the course of the project. And the applicant had the proposed coverage calculations. And I can say, just on a staff level, sometimes what you see on paper, sometimes what's actually constructed, there sometimes is some changes, so I'm just kind of looking ahead for that. Also provide information on if the proposed storage over the garage is to be climate controlled, an unfinished or finished area, and utilized for what type of storage. So with that, we know that the applicant is proposing, and also within your agenda packets, that second floor, but there is access from the main second floor level. It isn't something that's totally isolated. It does have circulation that you could go through the main second floor and get to over garage. So there's nothing really to say,
Yes.
you know, that couldn't be changed at some time, or how would one go about deeming that for storage only. The applicant should also discuss if the consideration was given to a rear entry garage rather than from the side of the property, which may have provided opportunity for additional parking. The applicant should provide testimony as to if any alternate plans have been developed should the variances not be granted. And the applicant should acknowledge that any visitors would be required to park on Gulf Way, as there is limited on-site parking available within the proposed attached garage only. No parking is permitted on the southern side of 21st Ave or within the alleyways. So staff does find the proposed variance relief sought does not advance the purposes of Land Development Code Section 1.1 and finds the benefit of granting the variances from the applicable Land Development Code sections, Section 6.13 and 20.15, as detailed in the staff findings report dated May 17, 2023, would be of substantial detriment and impair the intent and purpose of the zoning code and has an adverse impact on the neighborhood. Denial does not create difficulty in the use of the parcel of land, as each relief sought can be revised to meet code compliance. And with that, staff does recommend denial of both variances with case number 23031.
Okay, and the historic board, they have approved it, or did they let the 30 days expire?
They approved the demolition.
Correct.
And what the Historic Preservation Board actually looks at is the architecture of it. So they did make some requests for some modifications, but they just look at, does it meet certain parameters that is required in the overlay district. In no way possible did they approve these variances, or did they even
Consider
it. Correct. That is your duty.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here? Get your name and address for the record.
Nate Meyer. I'm with NJM Architect LLC.
Sir, were you sworn in or did you come in late?
He came in late.
Oh, yeah, I guess I wasn't sworn in.
Okay.
The first was already go.
Yeah. Clerk, do you mind? Thank you.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give or present to the board is truthful?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, could you speak up again and give us your name once?
Oh, yeah, Nate Meyer, NJM Architect LLC. I'm the owner's rep, or owner's architect.
Okay.
I wanted to actually start with the setbacks.
Nate, could you get a little bit closer to the mic?
Yeah.
It's hard to hear your voice.
I wanted to start by walking through the setbacks because after reading, this notice of public hearing and Kristen's report, it says that it doesn't comply, but I would say that it does. And it exceeds the setbacks in a lot of areas, and actually most of the areas. So this is section 20.15. It has to do with the house medium regulations, which are kind of based on our lot size, so this is what applies to our lot. And these are from the Pass the Grill overlay setback, so, and I think the setback that's probably most critical is right here. Garage adjacent to the alley is 5 feet. I might have to slide this plan up and down a little bit, but, so this is the site plan, and if you I'll walk you around, but, and north is actually down on this page, so, there's the rear alley to the south, and then this is the alley to the west, and then the front entry is here. So, right now, this garage is set at 5 feet off the south alley and 5 feet off the west alley. There's a part in this, well, I'll kind of finish going back around. There were some letters from homeowners too that were concerned about the setbacks also, and some stated that we were violating it on all sides of the house. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that too. The fronts. Let me go back to this. So here's where the setbacks for the front are between 10 and 15 feet. A secondary street is 5 feet. Side setbacks are 5 feet. The rear setback is 15. But then again, garage is 5. So you can see there's a lot of areas where, or there's only limited areas really, where we're up to the 5-foot setback on the side. It's along this edge, and then it steps back to 7'8". And then as you move back, the gray box represents like the main house, and then above this gray box, this is the ground floor, so above that is all air-conditioned space. And then the yellow is the garage. And then you can see this rear setback here, 15 feet. The back of the house is at 20'8" right now, and that's a storage and elevator that comes up all 3 floors. And then kind of walked around the garage already, is at 5 feet. This whole courtyard, the west side of the house steps back 23'8". So all along this edge is pushed back, and then the only point where you get back to the setback, to the 5-foot side setback, is right here. And then coming across the front, we did get approval, by the way, from James Weiner, the city architect. We worked with him after our last hearing, and really what we had to do was add a little more undulation and detail to the front elevation. So that's all these little offsets that you see are a result of that. And he did approve the design last week via email, and Brandon was copied on it. I don't know if Kristen was copied on it, but so the front back setback is 10 feet to 15 feet, 10 feet max, 15, or 10 minimum, 15 max. So this dashed line right here is a porch that's up on the 3rd floor, and that's the only part of the front elevation that is at the 10-foot setback. Everything else is kind of tiered back from there. So you can see 11 feet, back to 12.8, back to 13.4. So the whole facade is really, it can't go back any further than 15 feet. So there's a lot of relief along that front edge, I would say. So I guess the point of all that is we're exceeding setbacks in a lot of areas, and the garage meets the 5-foot setback right now. And I believe it meets the height requirements also. Back to this 20.15. I found this in a roundabout way, but the accessory structure, or the garage is considered an accessory structure. And there's some definitions in the code, and then in the zoning code, and then there's a section that talks about residential accessory structures specifically. So I'll just point this out real quick. Accessory structure, 28 feet. The principal building height is also 28 to 32 feet, and there's a way that you measure that, but right now, the house meets all those height requirements too, and that was kind of determined in the last hearing that we had.
We're just addressing the side yard and the setbacks, not the height.
Okay. I thought it might come into play. That's the only reason I mentioned it, but okay, so this is the section that talks about residential accessory structures. There's two types, attached or detached. Our garage is attached, which means that it shares 75% of a common wall of the primary house. So, and I kind of updated some of these drawings and I added a few. With the variance application. So some of these drawings were there, but I've added some notes and dimensions to kind of help clarify. So again, this gray box is the main house. The walls, the common wall is 18'8". The garage overlaps that by 14'3", which is a little greater than 75%. 14 feet would be 75% of 18'8". So that goes back to this definition of the garage is attached, and then if it's attached, I guess we're not talking about the height, but it kind of, that's where I show that the height of 28 feet or less is approved per the zoning code. So I said all that because I was trying to establish the fact that the garage, where it's set and the height of it are approved through the code. We're not applying for a variance to increase the setback or increase the height of the garage. It's already, the way that it's designed right now meets the code requirements. And I think when I got this public hearing notice that went out, and then, right here stating that the 15-foot rear setback requirement is really 5 feet proposed, it kind of suggests that it's supposed to be 15 and we're asking for 5, which is not really the case. It's already 5. And then this, I was a little confused by this, but this was kind of saying the same thing, but saying that the rear setback is 20 feet, and then we're proposing 5 feet. So, again, if you read some of the letter, or the 2 letters from the neighbors, they were really concerned about us kind of increasing the setbacks encroaching into the city property, which are not true, so.
So you're saying the garage does not encroach into the setback?
Yes, I'm saying, yeah, it does not encroach into the
What are your
setback.
variances? And what is your other variance?
The other variance is regarding the pool.
Right.
The wall.
I had a couple images
You got
to,
down close to the property line.
what's that?
You talked, the other one is the pool wall, I believe, right?
Yeah. I wanted to just share a couple other things about the garage real quick, if I
You have
could.
to speak up over the,
I wanted to show a couple more images about the garage, because really the nature of this variance request related to the garage was, we have the height and a certain volume of the garage, and what we're trying to do is utilize the space within that volume, not extend the garage or make it taller. So this is a view of the garage. If you cut part of the wall off, and so what the variance that we're trying to do, we're trying to put a floor in here and use it as storage. And what we'd like to do is be able to access it from the second floor.
Would that be under air?
is that a conditioned space?
No, it would be a non-conditioned, unfinished, there would be some lights in there, but that's it. So this is a kind of enlarged version of the second floor. This elevator, you access from the garage, you come up to the second floor, and what we're proposing to do is have a floor in here and a door to access this floor. Otherwise, this is where that door would be. So at the moment, well, at the moment, nothing's built yet, so, but that's basically what we're proposing. This yellow would be a floor in this space, kind of above the vehicles. And, you know, something I mentioned in the application was that people all the time store things in the garage, you know, they'll hang things from the rafters or the ceiling. So that's basically what we're trying to do too. You know, we've got some height. The height is kind of related to the other, like the 3-story house.
If it's within the height limit, there's really not of any concern to the board.
Okay.
We're here for your side yard variance as well.
Okay.
What we're looking at.
Well, then with that, I would say there is no, we're not trying to extend the setback of the side yard. It's
What
it's
about
5.
the pool wall?
Okay, the pool. What's that? Oh, okay. I might start, I'll start with this. Well, Okay, well, let me go over this first then, I guess. So this is kind of this is the pool design currently. The plan is for it to be around 3 feet and maybe get down to 5 feet here at the deep end. So this is the alley, the west side alley. This is the garage beyond that we were just talking about. So the property line is here. So the property line is here. The pool, so in the zoning code, it says that the pool, where does it say it? Oh, it's as required for the principal structure. So the side setback is 5 feet. So the pool could be up to 5 feet, or has to be set back 5 feet, and then it says it's measured from the edge of the water. So this line right here, they're kind of integral right now. So there's this, we have the pool, and then some type of water feature here, and the idea is that this would be kind of a seamless transition from the deeper pool to the water feature, as opposed to like having this water feature that's outside of the pool. You know, they're kind of one and the same.
The water feature is still part of the pool.
What's that?
The water feature is still part of your pool.
Yeah, it is part of the pool. Okay, so I guess you would say that I guess that's where, what I was trying to do is say, hey, the pool really ends, the swimmable area ends at this 5 feet like it's supposed to, and then the water feature is beyond that.
So if you weren't granted that variance, you could put your pool in and keep it back.
Yeah, I think if we weren't granted the variance, I would extend this wall, this little wall up. Probably do something like that. Put a little wall here, or a coping.
Well, if you weren't granted the variance, then you'd have to meet the setback. And
Yeah, so I think that would meet the setback if these were kind of separated, then the pool's edge would be here at 5 feet, and then this fountain, well, you tell me if this applies, but then the fountain would be a separate element, and
oh my gosh,
down in this same code section, it says fountains and waterfalls may be permitted by the city, decorative elements, max height is 5 feet. So I had it at 6 feet. I think it could be fine if it was 5 feet high. And then the required yards, it says it shall not encroach into any required yard more than 15 feet. So it can encroach into the side setback up to 15 feet. So it can be, at least the way I read it, this fountain and waterfall feature. It might be one or the other too. I'm just kind of graphically showing some type of water feature here, but
it's like a hurricane.
So the way I read that in the code is it can be in the side yard. So if we separated the pool from the fountain water feature, I feel like it meets the intent of the code.
You can kind of summarize what you want to do here, and then we need to talk with each other.
Okay.
The audience a chance.
Well, what I want to do is not build this wall and be able to kind of swim the pool and then maybe sit on this shelf here in the pool and then have...
We keep losing power up here.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to sit on this shelf and have either water coming off this water feature, or maybe it's a little sprinkler or something. So that's what I would like them to be integral, as opposed to two separate elements like as shown.
Okay, thank you. Let us discuss this a little bit.
Okay.
Can you leave that photo up there while we're discussing?
If we can see it, right?
The pool
so
part or or this part or this part?
Yeah, that's
a good one. Thank you.
here.
So I know, yeah, Kristen definitely has some things to address here, but before we say that, because I was at the Historic Preservation Board last month, just to clarify, strictly a design review. Strictly design review based on the requirements in the Passive Grove overlay. Our architect was involved, Brandon Berry was involved to determine whether or not the intent of the code section was met by the architecture, setbacks, you know, how they mask everything, landscaping, all of that nature. So it had nothing to do, and to be clear, the Historic Preservation Board approved that with the condition that the variance would have had to been improved, right, which is why it's in front of you today. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And just to piggyback on the board attorney's comments, it was strictly for a general building design. Anything under that's being built to the overlay has to go before the historic board for a general building design where they look at mass, secondary mass, design elements, things of that nature. That's why we do retain a city architect to look at that, as staff is not by any means experts in that. And that is, the design review is required by the LDC section 20.24. With regards to the second floor of the garage, staff does feel that that variance is required. That was mentioned in the historic board staff report that was done by staff, that those variances would be required. The way that it's looked at as the 5-foot setback is if it was a 1-story structure. Because he has internal circulation on the second floor, he does have a floor above, staff does not consider that to be a garage at that point. So that's why it is considered part of the principal dwelling, and that's why it was noticed the way that it was, based on our completeness review, that would have been required. So he would be able to have a single level of 14 feet in height, and that's based off of the Passive Grove overlay standards. And it would be at 5 feet to the property line.
At 5 feet, when he has the higher level, he has interior circulation, changes the setback.
If you were to eliminate that second level and it would meet the max height of 14 feet, that would be fine at 5 feet. But because he has that second level as well as the interior circulation, and it's not strictly just garage, he has to meet the requirements of the principal dwelling. Now, as far as storage goes, and that's what he's attesting to, if we look at the first floor of the building, and if I could just go back to the PowerPoint. You will see on the first floor, there are several different storage areas towards the front of the building. There's a large one to the east as well as into the rear of the dwelling. So there is storage. I'm not sure what they're looking to store there. Just staff does have concern of how you regulate, if that's what they're attesting to, that will remain as such. But we do find that he does need that 5 foot. He does not meet the required setback.
So right now it requires 15 feet.
It does require 15 feet.
As it proposed.
And this was all documented as part of the Historic Preservation Board as well.
And the swimming pool on the wall for that.
So with regards to that, staff would not separate whether that be considered a fountain per se versus part of the pool. It is integral as part of the pool. And he would need that setback requirement of 5 feet where 8 inches is proposed.
Which he could get that by just cutting it back to the...
He would have to eliminate that and re-landscape.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is anyone else here that would like to speak on behalf of this applicant? We have anybody in objection? If you can come forward, sir. Either one of you. You've been standing a long time.
I fell over my back. I'm afraid if I sit down, I won't be able to stand back.
Gotcha. Get your name and address for the record.
My name's Michael Kahn. I'm at 104 21st Avenue in Passive Grove. I wrote a letter also objecting to this. I wanted to come and speak, not to reiterate what I wrote in the letter, but to refute and rebuke anything that the applicant is saying. he's speaking on my behalf, saying I'm wrong, and saying that the planning board's wrong and everyone else is wrong. If he's so confident, why are we even here with an application for variance? He's all within the bounds, it seems like. But I don't think he is confident. And just going through that four-prong test, the provisions, the one that keeps sticking out to me, you talk about the overlay. No other house has the overlay standards in theirs. No one's talking about, do you know what the setback on all the other buildings that are on 21st? We're back 20-some feet, 20-plus feet. And he's coming all the way up 10 feet in the front. Same thing in the back. I know how far, the main building setback on that block, because that's me. I'm 25 feet from the alley. He wants, with the overlay standards and so forth, to come so close to the alley. How is number 2, will this change the character of the neighborhood? He's put in this huge house that's too big for the lot, which, because of variance creep, he got the overlay standards, but now he even wants to push past the overlay standards. And I think that's changing the character. It's slowly pushing out the boundaries. The 3 and 4, I really don't see how something that is conceptual in design could ever be compelling in their answer for numbers 3 and 4. The difficulty in changing their architecture plan, that's minimal, if anything. This is almost the wrong application for him because it isn't existing. There's no real difficulty in just changing up the plans. And as far as justice, on number 4, the interest of justice, well, you're creating an injustice for everyone else around him. And, that's frankly the truth of the matter. In my letter, I urge you to go back and read that because many of the things that Ms. Coleman mentioned, I put into real situations, the things that we've experienced that is tight corners. Is it terrible that those alleys have become so active over the years? Yes, but we are here with this situation now. And I'm just wanting it to not be exacerbated by these setbacks being eliminated. So, okay?
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
For your comment. Thank you. Is there someone else who would like to speak? Can you come forward?
Hi. I'm Greg Sieber, 303 Hermesita Drive, over on Vina Del Mar. So I got my notes here, so I'm not playing with my phone. So I've been visiting Paso Grill since the mid-'80s, and I would love for it to go back to the mid-'80s. I loved it back then, but that ship has sailed. A couple points, I just wanted to give you that for context, that I wanted to just bring up. So I'm kind of looking at, and I would hope you would look at Paso Grill as Paso Grill. I keep hearing these comparisons of 21st Street, which is 4 houses, I think, on that side of the road, which seems a little bit unfair. If you use that same methodology, all of Paso Grill Way would still be the way it looked in the mid-'80s, which again would be fine by me, but that ship has sailed. So it seems a little unfair to use that comparison. I also heard some comments about the staff being concerned about egress in the alleys, parking in the alleys, that kind of thing, which I can understand that being an issue, but the problem is there's already fences there, and you saw the picture of the horrible-looking chain-link fence right along the property line, so that's already that kind of makes that a moot point, right? I mean, the egress is gone, it blocks the parking, so those parking issues already exist either way. It seems like that's a bit of a stretch to say that this is going to really change that a whole lot compared to what is possible now, right? Because the fencing that's there. Granted, if they wanted to let people park on their property on the cement pad, that's a different story. But that again, that's their property, so they don't have to do that. And then there's I'll admit I don't fully understand this whole 2-story thing with the garage, but what I heard was that there is no circulation, and I heard the word circulation coming up as being kind of like the differentiator. If I understand what circulation means, it sounds like HVAC, air circulating in the space, which what I heard is not there. So I feel like some of those positions of the staff of egress, architectural comparisons, and circulation are kind of, there's some weaknesses to those positions based on what I can see, especially if you focus out a little bit and look at more than just those 4 houses on that part of 21st. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Anyone else like to speak? If not, we'll close public comments and we'll open up for board discussion.
Chair, did you want to give the applicant an opportunity to rebut before board discussion?
We could do that. If you'd like to have a brief rebuttal to any of this, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to say that the board was wrong, but as I read the code, the 5-foot setback to me was pretty clear. I don't know where it says anything about 14 feet max height if you have circulation. Those are kind of like specific things that's kind of why I walked through those code sections, the logic as to how we got to where we were at. So I didn't mean any disrespect to anybody, and I am definitely confident in what I've been doing. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll open it up for board discussion. Do you have anything more, Kristen, you'd like to add?
Just kind of to reiterate what I mean by circulation is that there is interior access. There is the ability to access over that garage strictly and only by an interior door from the existing principal dwelling. So I would consider that being there, the only access you have to that second floor that's proposed is from the second floor of the inside of the house, that there is interior circulation. Does not pertain to HVAC, does not pertain to anything of that nature, is that you access, and that is your sole means of ingress, egress to that area. There's no steps or anything that are proposed, from the exterior of the dwelling or within the inside of the garage.
To me, what I agree, there's a 5-foot, the 5-foot setback along the pool is the 5-foot setback.
Correct.
The features can't go beyond that.
Correct.
And the garage needs to be back to 15 feet unless it's a true garage with
Yes,
storage.
correct.
So should this not pass, normally there's 6 months you have to wait before you can go back for a variance, but he could go back and make those changes and come back right away, but then he wouldn't be requiring a variance, I believe, right?
If he,
So, no, and I actually have a question on top of that, Chair. So, Kristen, if they remove this idea of this middle, I guess, halfway point of the garage for storage, the variance would not be required?
correct. So if he eliminated that and was met down to the 14 feet, as it's defined in the Paso Girl overlay and the definitions of building height, that's where that information came from, within section 20. He would meet compliance with that.
So he would need a variance.
He would not need a variance.
And if he brought in the pool, he wouldn't need a
on the
variance?
swimming pool, he wouldn't need a variance either.
That is correct.
So he could come back to you next week with those changes, and he'd probably be all right,
Absolutely,
providing plan review and all that.
correct.
If he wanted another variance, and you're correct, he would have to wait 6 months based on the denial and then reapply and
He
come.
could do it without, making those changes without having to come back for a variance. He'd be compliant.
Correct.
Correct.
And that would eliminate the second floor of the garage and bring the pool into the
5 foot.
required setback.
Pool and features,
And the features.
clarify,
I
yeah,
call that the pool because it doesn't end,
correct.
you know.
And that's the way staff interprets it as well.
Okay. Any other discussions? Anybody like to make a motion?
Oh, I do have a question. So, did I read in one of the concerns about the power trucks being able to get down the alley with a second story built that close to the alley?
That probably would have been in one of the objector's letters, correct?
So has the city looked at that? I don't,
No, I mean, to keep it simple, the city's position is if someone's building to the requirements in the land development code, there's nothing that we can do to prevent that. Right? So if you're building to your setbacks and it happens to impede access by a truck, then respectfully, the truck needs to go a different way.
but if the truck can't go another way to bring power back to that area, if we approved a variance for that, that could really hamper other neighbors getting their power back after a storm or something. Am I correct, or trying to understand?
I don't know how the electric companies respond. I'm assuming they have a hybrid. They probably operate on foot as well. But if you, yeah.
Okay.
Again, all we're here for is those two setbacks.
Correct, and yeah, if you're going to deny it, it's based on the criteria. If you're going to approve it, it's based on the criteria. So that's what you look at for your reasoning.
Okay.
But if he changes his plan with the garage,
If we deny him, he can still come back and do it without a variance.
So I think the representative wants to make one more comment if the board is willing.
yes.
Yes.
Well, so are you saying that if we removed the floor within the garage, the setback is okay and the height is okay, or?
On the garage, if you lower the ceiling in the garage and I believe the setback is okay, isn't it?
The height would still have to be 14 feet.
14 feet.
Yep.
So you couldn't have the
garage.
second-story garage with just a two-story open space garage.
What about removing the door so there's no more circulation?
Well, there wouldn't be a door because it wouldn't.
I guess if you remove the door, there's,
The issue. It's a space that has circulation, that was the issue. You take away
Okay,
circulation.
but if you're going to speak, you're going to have to come up to the
Yeah.
podium.
Sorry.
well,
You might know.
just logically, if you remove the door based on the then there's no way to access that second floor.
But still, the requirement's 14 feet.
Attached.
So, to the applicant's question, in my opinion, that is an administrative question that should be happening outside the chambers when it comes to specificity on what you require. The issue I have with this information coming before you now is you have a variance in front of you that you either have to approve or deny. And if you have someone telling you that I shouldn't have applied for a variance, then you have nothing to approve or deny. So, it's kind of confusing as to how we're here at this point. If you never thought you needed a variance on the garage, all of that should have been happened prior to your application being certified, because you only have two decisions to make here: approve it or deny it.
Could he withdraw it and come back, make the changes that would be in compliance? Or does it make a difference if,
I mean, it was under one application, both variances, so I think they have to travel together. I guess you could approve one and not the other, if you wanted to approve the pool. If the board's willing, yeah, the applicant can continue this now that we've gone through it to the future meeting. But it's at the direction of the board.
we just deal with it, with the two variances, and he can do it. There's really not a hardship. They've created the hardship themselves. So there is no hardship here.
Right.
But it sounds
I mean, it was kind of hard to answer some of those questions because I agree in some ways, but,
We're going to just close it now and can discuss it amongst ourselves.
okay.
It's all right. We have a motion one way or the other?
I'm not making a motion on approval for this right now, no.
You can make one for denial.
Based on that satisfying the criteria. Because that's what I'm hearing from the board, and I think now, based on my workshop and everything, we have to clarify why we are denying it. So I just wanted to mention that.
All right.
So it could go two ways. It could go a motion for denial or a motion for approval, and then a no vote would cancel it. Would be the same thing, am I correct?
Motion dies with no second, correct?
But then if there was a second and then there was a roll call and it was if one of them was a no, then it would die anyway. It'd be.
No, then you would have to follow up with a motion to deny.
Oh.
That was specifically the new statute that we discussed. You have to actually make a motion in the affirmative or the non-affirmative.
I would make a motion for denial as it does not meet the criteria set forth in our code.
I would second that.
The motion, a second.
To deny both?
And I both.
Yes. Okay, Member Bomar?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Chair Skipper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So. Okay.
Okay, that's the last thing on the agenda for today. Do we have
Yes.
anything else we need to talk about?
Sure, yeah, just a few reminders, because you all are board members, proudly serve the city. Our office and the city clerk's office are putting on a mandatory presentation, Sunshine Law and Ethics. We have selected 2 dates. There's going to be an acknowledgement that each board member has to sign off on. Don't know who said yes, who hasn't, so please excuse me if I'm repeating myself, but one of those is tomorrow from 10 to 12. The other one is June 9th from 1 to 3. And like I said, there will be an acknowledgement. So just to clarify, city commissioners are required to actually do training and get certificates at the state level. Boards are not. We've had a lot of new board members as well. We do this presentation yearly. So there's actually going to be an acknowledgement that every board member has to sign off on. The reason I mention that is because it's important. Like if you can make this, treat it like a public hearing that you wouldn't miss. It's important that you understand what's happening, what's requested of you, what's required of you. So please try to make that if you can. And coordinate with the clerk's office on your attendance.
And tomorrow, what time is it?
10 to 12 tomorrow in the chambers, and then June 9th, 1 to 3.
So I believe that's already been set, right? So we've already...
You've already responded. I have an email that I didn't...
Oh, I've just been doing, I don't know who's responded or hasn't. I've just been reminding every board that I sit at.
And you doing the presentation?
Me, Andrew, and Amber.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. Got some questions in there for you guys, so.
Do we have anything for the meeting next month?
We do. We actually have 4 hardship variance applications on. One will be the red, white, and booze application. That was, we were going to carry it to this meeting. However, they did amend their application, so I have to do the proper noticing and everything with regards to that. And then the one that we carried or continued from today would be for June as well, with 2 additional. And that will be on June 28th.
Okay, so tomorrow, 10 to 12.
Correct.
All right.
In the chambers.
If there's nothing else, do we have a motion for adjournment?
On that? Okay.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We're adjourned.